And welcome everybody to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We've parsed our space weather videos into multiple segments now. So this one is going to include the magnetic and some other geospatial information. Let's do it. First the GOES magnetometer. There it is over the past 3 days. Nothing too exciting happening there. Let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. It's the top view ecliptic plane field plot, part of the GONG 2 data. So this National Sunspot Observatory data is derived from ground-based magnetometers here on Earth, 51 of them, as well as magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B at Lagrange point 5 and 4 respectively. One of the most important bits of information that we have as far as forecasting. Earth remains in a South Pole current sheet shown there in red. Here's the line of sight view. And yeah, pretty exciting as solar cycle 25 ramps up. Let's look at the coronal hole view. We'll also look at sunspots and coronal holes, the two main features of the closest star. And of course, they are measured by, excuse me, they're measured by and associated with the sun's magnetic fields. There is a trans-equatorial coronal hole, which will be providing geomagnetic storm. Make sure you watch our other space weather video. We've produced multiple today. Check our playlists at youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. So we've got another, even larger, more trans-equatorial coronal hole rotating in here. It's South Pole oriented as well. You can see that there shown in red. Here's 193 angstroms from the SDO. And we've even done a close-up here to show you a little closer view of that coronal hole. It's very well defined. It's losing its V shape a little bit here. And again, we can expect to see some aurora borealis and possibly australis from the induced current from the protons emanating from that coronal hole. Next, we'll look at sunspots. 1700 angstroms is a good wavelength. And we've got multiple sunspots here that are larger than the Earth. This one up here is new. It's just formed in the past 2 days. This one up here is producing a coronal mass ejection as we make the video. So we almost shut off our coronal mass ejection warning, folks, but not quite, because, well, the forecast hasn't come true yet, and we don't tend to be incorrect with our forecasts. We've had 0 false alarms and only 1 incorrect coronal mass ejection forecast, or 1 lack of a coronal mass ejection forecast, I should say, over the past year. So likelihood of major flares has gone up significantly here with these new sunspots. Namely sunspot 2928, but 2924 is still capable of producing M or X class flares, I would say. And let's blast through some more data here. First, a close-up of the equatorial region, which does include all the sunspot groups. So quite a few sunspot groups there, folks. Getting up as high as 9 sunspot groups there on the solar flare probability monitor. Looking at some more data here. No major flares, just some C-class intensifications, including one earlier today. There was a minor coronal mass ejection as well. We'll get to it. First, the GOES proton flux. No spikes in that of any significance. And let's go to the real-time solar wind to show you a coronal mass ejection strike, which was just occurring here. So you can see these sudden changes here in the density and the solar wind speed and the plasma temperature all at the same time. Some rather sporadic ejecta there, likely striking Lagrange point 1, which is where these spacecraft are located, by the way. The ACE and Discover spacecraft, they're about 1 million miles away in between the Earth and the Sun. Current conditions are for the solar wind, I'm going to say about 515 kilometers per second and about 5.5 protons per cubic centimeter. So some coronal mass ejecta striking at the moment. KP index only at 0, so that hasn't done very much to affect the global geomagnetism. Here's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. over the past 4 hours. It's a geospace magnetosphere movie. And you can see those changes in pressure happening as a result of those differences in pressure and density. So that was Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Ground magnetic perturbations in nanotesla. And you see multiple pulses here as a result of changes in the induction, especially around the poles. No big changes. Here's what's going on in the solar system. This is where stuff is located. We're going to give you a 7-day forecast. And there's where things will be in a week. Mercury about to blaze past Earth, and then Venus. Next, a star chart. If you're up before dawn and you have a low horizon, you might see Mars rising ahead of the sun. We've also drawn in the ecliptic plane in yellow, the galactic plane in blue, to give you a better idea of what's going on above your head. That's the star chart for Lehigh Valley. And let's take a look at the coronal mass ejection watch. It's actually a warning. And there are some happening now. We're just seeing some old data. So let's take a look at stereo A here on the left. You can see there was a recent coronal mass ejection there, totally not Earth-facing. For you new viewers, the Earth would be off in this direction from stereo A. So that's not an Earth-directed coronal mass ejection. The data is a little too old on the LASCO C3 to show anything, and there is another coronal mass ejection happening as we make the video. If you haven't checked out our cosmology segments, make sure you check those out. They're on our playlist. youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. And let's get to some more data. And we're going to show magnetohydrodynamic density here. Protons per cubic centimeter. The geospace magnetosphere movie for density, since we see some striations happening as a result of some rather sporadic ejecta here from some coronal mass ejections, apparently. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted. Name and news.